All right, we're live. So, welcome to episode 14 of Unplanned with Phil Bland, and I'm joined today with Casey Irvin, or Casey to and fro on Instagram. So, I really wanted to speak to Casey because she has been on a bit of a journey from working in the corporate world to deciding about 5 years ago just to quit her job and go traveling. And so I thought we could touch on some of the kind of steps in her journey and some of the kind of experiences she's had and like what the lifestyle of a travel vlogger is. So welcome, Casey.
Hello.
So I guess like one of the things that a lot of people would be wondering would be, how does a traveler that's been going around for 5 years and visiting loads of different countries, how do you feel about being cooped up in the same place and not being able to travel around? I mean, how does that feel?
Yeah, so it's very different. My life is always on the go, go, go. But I do think I needed to slow down a little bit. And the only way I was able to slow down was if a pandemic happened. So although my lifestyle has changed a lot, I'm really appreciative because I have a place where I can stay. I'm at my parents' house, and my entire family is together with my sister and their partners. Um, and it's like we're growing up again, having the whole family in one house. Um, so I really appreciate it, even though it is quite different how my life usually is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a strange time, I guess, for everyone. I saw like some of the content that you've still been putting out and things. You know, it's like a creative time for everybody. You're looking for different angles for you know, I saw a post that Casey was putting up with her mom's pouring water all over her as if she was in a like an exotic environment. So it's quite funny. Yeah, so Casey and I met in New York through mutual friends, and I just thought she had a crazy lifestyle. And at the time, I was very much working in the corporate sector, and you know, building a career, working up, you know, trying to go for promotions and things like that. And it just seemed like Casey was living this nomadic lifestyle that sounded so interesting, yet kind of far removed from the journey that I've been on. So but I guess you lived that kind of lifestyle first off. So, like, you know, first of all, going, you know, tracked through Ivy League, and then getting a job in the corporate world. Like, how did you think about those early decisions about what you wanted to do with your life? Um, let's start there.
Yeah, so I always had a case of wanderlust. Like it's really started in college when I was going on some spring break trips with my university. So I always had this desire to travel. After I graduated college, I went backpacking for 5 weeks in Southeast Asia, and I met these people who were like on these really long backpacking trips. I'm like, oh, that's different. So when I started working in corporate America, I would always use my 2 weeks vacation to go on an international trip. And at some point, I realized if I really want to see the world, 2 weeks vacation is not going to be enough. There's very little I can see. So I made a plan. I think I was 23. That's when I decided. I'm like, Casey, you're gonna travel the world. So I saved up money for 2 years, um, with a plan to travel around for 1 year. And that plan has changed a little bit because that 1 year has turned into now a full nomadic lifestyle that I've been living for almost 5 years.
Wow. And like, how did you think about, you know, you probably had like an idea of how your life would turn out. I know, like, in your post that you put on your Instagram, you were talking about how you imagined your life where you would have a stay-at-home husband and things. So, like, were you starting to detach yourself from that idea before you went on traveling, or was it the year abroad that really kind of cemented that that wasn't actually how your life would play out?
Um, my year abroad definitely changed my perspective. Um, I'm a risk averse person, so I had my whole game plan. If I was going to take a year away, I already had a plan to come back to New York. I had a plan in action to like get a new job and all these things because I wanted to make sure. Like I left my furniture at my friend's house. I'm like, don't worry guys, I'll be back in a year. Like this is what I'm going to do. Um and yeah, growing up, I always wanted to be like the breadwinner in the family. I started working at Morgan Stanley when I was 16. So it was just kind of like a mentality I had. Then somehow, once I started traveling, I my perspectives kind of changed. I realized I didn't really need as much money.
Hmm.
Um, so if I don't need that much money, what I really value more is the time and the freedom. And with this nomadic lifestyle, I have way more time and freedom. I'm on a strict budget, but
Hmm.
uh, I prefer it just because I'm able to decide where I want to go this weekend, or if my friend is having an event, I can always attend. So I really appreciate the freedom, even if I don't have that much money now.
Was that like through conversations with people that you met? Usually, sometimes when people are in a kind of tight circle of people with similar experiences and going through a tracked course, and if everyone else is doing it, then you might as well, go to college or go take a job. So was it like meeting other travelers broadened your experience, or was it more of a kind of internal dialogue that you were having?
I think it's just more of an internal dialogue. And never, even to this day, my parents still ask, like, Casey, what happened to that original plan? Are you going to go get a regular job? Um, so it's I've reevaluated what I appreciate in life.
Yeah,
Uh, but at some point, I do need to get a better source of income.
yeah,
So there's always a little bit of fear about what's going to happen in the future.
yeah,
But I do have trust that things will happen the way they're supposed to. So I
yeah.
kind of give myself to life and let life lead me.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's kind of live in the moment type thing.
Yeah.
Um, so where did you kind of go in your first couple of years and or first year traveling? And how, I guess, how's your travel planning evolved over the last 5 years? Because you've probably got a lot better at it.
Yeah. If I were to start it all over, I would have just booked a one-way flight somewhere with absolutely no plan. Because I think that's the best way to travel is you never know who you're going to meet, what experience you're going to have, if you want to stay somewhere longer, shorter. I think having the ultimate flexibility is the best. But with my first year, I thought I would only have 1 year abroad, so I wanted to pack as much as I could in 1 year.
Mm.
So I went literally around the world that first year, visiting I think 5 continents. I don't know how many countries. Um, so it was kind of fast travel, even though it was a year long.
Mm.
And everything after that year has been unplanned, since it was only supposed to be 1 year. And um, I have a fear of commitment now, like fear of buying flights,
Mm.
because I know things can always change. I missed so many flights in the past because things can always change.
Do you think that your experiences have been more like, I know a big thing for you is having authentic experiences with in the cultures and things that you go to. Do you think that first year was more like ticking boxes rather than trying to like immerse yourself in the cultures? Have you got better at trying to seek out real experiences in places you go?
Well, I was still developing my travel style that first year. Um, so there definitely were things I wanted to check off my bucket list. Like I wanted to go skydiving in Australia. I wanted to learn some Spanish.
Mm.
But I think it was also natural I developed where I wanted to interact with local communities because that's the main drive for why I love to travel. I love to meet people, and I like to try to understand where I am. Um, so even in that first year, I still had experiences that were truly authentic, This was before Instagram was big and stuff like that. So like I wasn't trying to like pose for any pictures. Like everything I was having was
Mm.
just for the love of the adventure, for the love of traveling, and I wasn't like sharing it with the world.
Yeah. I guess when did the documentation part of it start coming in? Did you like when did you decide that, and what was important about, starting the blogging and things?
Um, Everyone always told me like I should be journaling this trip. My parents' friends were always upset that I wasn't journaling. Like I tried to journal, but like it never really worked out. Um, so my Instagram started to become my journal. Um, the first year, like as I said, I wasn't posting as much and just kind of like living more in the moment. But I am really happy that I have these pictures I can go back on and relive those memories. And then probably after 2 years, I started to uh, be more uh, careful with my Instagram and be more like, oh, let me get like a really pretty picture here because
Mm.
I love this spot. I want to remember this spot. I want to build the story about this spot. Um, so I still use Instagram as a way to collect my memories, but it's a little bit more organized now.
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, it's like it's incredible just all the places that you've been. I remember looking at it and thinking, I was living in New York at the time, and I was working, and I was having kind of good experiences in terms of like challenging experiences, but I just remember being so jealous. Like just because I don't know, I just saw the lifestyle that you were leading, and it seemed kind of scary to the status quo, and and uncomfortable, yet it was something that I looked at and kind of really admired. It was like the courage to go off the beaten track and just do something that doesn't seem strange, or normal for people. How do people react when you tell them that you've been traveling for 5 years? Do they, is it like, have you noticed there's different people react in different ways? How is that?
I think for most people, it's just like curiosity. They're like, wait, how is it possible that someone's able to travel for 5 years? Because people might say, like, oh, I've been traveling for 1 year, 2 year. Then now that I've hit like the 5 year mark, I even surprise myself. I'm like, oh my God, I've been on the road for so long. Um, so I think the biggest curiosity is like, how are you able to sustain
Yeah,
travel? Um,
let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. How have you managed to sustain travel for this long? Like, what was the first year you had a plan, and then how did you keep it going for so long?
yeah, so sorry, my alarm
Oh
just went
wow.
off. So how to sustain long-term travel? One thing I think people have to realize is I'm not here living a life of luxury. Um, with traveling long term, you have to make a lot more compromises, and you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Um, so I've used apps like couch surfing, where maybe I'm sleeping on a random stranger's couch or floor, or I'll take a 17-hour bus ride somewhere. Uh, so there are different like sacrifices I met throughout. But now that I'm even like more of a long-term traveler, it's harder to keep doing those similar things I did when I started out because then I would just get too tired. You can't sustain that type of
Mhm,
travel lifestyle for 5 years.
mhm, mhm,
Um, so for me, it's really been important about um, finding seasonal work. And over the summers, I found seasonal work with being a chef on boats. Uh, and it's funny because when I first got the job, my mom was in shock. She's like, Casey, you don't cook or clean. Like, you haven't done this in your entire life. How are you going to be doing this for other people? Uh, and I didn't know. I didn't know anything. I wrote down a recipe for scrambled eggs my first week of work. But now I've been doing that for 5 summer seasons. And with the money I'm able to make for over the summer, I'm able to live off of for the rest of the year. So that's kind of been the pattern now. The one thing traveling has taught me is to adapt to change. So if I got stuck in the Caribbean, I'm like, okay, this is where I'm going to be.
Hey, Casey, you're covering the mic.
Sorry. My bad. So yeah, I was saying if I'm able to adapt to my situation. So if I got stuck in the Caribbean, I would have been okay with that. I would have learned what to do. Um, but my parents are freaking out. They're like, Casey, the world is shutting down. Everyone's saying you need to get home. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll go home.
Hey, talking about your parents, so like how have they been, going on this journey with you? Everyone, parents have expectations of them that they should be living a certain life. Like you've been pushing the boundary a little bit. How are they coping with it?
Yeah, it's been kind of a roller coaster with that. Starting back when I was 23, when I told my parents, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna travel around the world for a year. And they're like, sure, yeah, whatever, Casey, we believe you. But then I was saving for 2 years. I was super frugal for 2 years. And I'm like, no, this is happening. This is happening. And when the date finally came, my parents were like, oh, wow, wait, you're going? um, and they were really nervous, really scared. Um, my mom, she didn't sleep for the first 6 months when I started traveling. She just mentioned that to me recently. But now, I think they're really proud of me.
Yeah.
Just because they mentioned like, Casey, you've seen more in your 20s than people see in a lifetime.
Yeah.
And the experiences you're having are unique and special. So they really do appreciate the journey that I've been going on. And as long as I don't have to rely on them for money or anything like that, then I'm free to choose the life that I want to lead.
Yeah.
And I think they do still worry about me a little bit, just in terms of my future. And I'm a little bit worried about my future as well, but they can see that I'm happy. And I've even had them come visit me on my travels, and they're not big travelers, and that's been a great experience as well.
Yeah. Is this just sort of your future, like worries about your future? Is that just sort of creeping in now, or have you had that during the whole time, over the whole 5 years?
No, it's definitely more of a recent thing where I've started to get a little bit more anxiety, just because I realized that maybe traveling the way that I do is not sustainable. Because the way I've been traveling is, as you said, for the show, it's like very unplanned. So I can be in 4 different continents in 1 month. I very rarely stay in the same place and slow down. So I'm realizing I need to press the brake a little bit. And that's why this pandemic has been kind of nice, because it's been the first time in 5 years where I've been in the same place. I can press pause and kind of just reflect a little bit more.
Yeah.
So my anxiety is just I need to find a place where I can settle a little bit. And for me, settling means like 2 months or 3 months here. And just travel at a slower pace and make this a more sustainable lifestyle than being everywhere all the time.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time when people start traveling, sometimes, like, you always hear about people going on gap years when they're like not sure what they want to do with their life. And quite often the problems that they like had before they went away are still there when they get back. It's almost like a distraction from real life, and sometimes finding the purpose for what you actually want to do with your life and like spend your time on. Have you felt like you're kind of at any point kind of running away from real life while you've been traveling, or do you think it's just been like the purpose is to just curiosity and interest in seeing the world?
For me, it's really been the curiosity to see the world.
Yeah.
I had the choice. Like, I was in a very fortunate situation. I had a good job in New York, living in a good apartment. I was able to save enough money to travel. Like, I made a conscious decision to leave what I had in New York, which I enjoyed. Like, I loved my job. I loved my friends in New York. I loved all of that. But I also knew that I had this strong case of wanderlust. So I was never running away from anything. But now that I've been on the road for so long, I do realize that there are some other things that I want to prioritize as well. Yes, I have a lot of freedom right now, but if I ever do want to start my own family, like I'm here with my family right now, and it's been so amazing. And I can't really start a family the type of lifestyle that I'm leading.
Yeah.
So there are certain different priorities I have to start thinking about. Um, but no,
How's
I
that?
never thought I was running away from anything.
Yeah. How's that been with relationships over the 5 years? Is it like tough to maintain things? What have been the kind of trade-offs there?
Yeah. Uh, so I've been perpetually single my entire life. So even when I was in New York, college, I never had a boyfriend. And when I started my year traveling, I was adamant about finding my one true love and having this romantic story and all this stuff. Um, I feel like I was kind of chasing love that first year. I'm like, oh, I want to find someone. Uh, and then it never really happened.
Just running across the world looking for love.
Yeah, that didn't really happen. I realized, Casey, if you're going from X to Z to Y, like it'll be hard.
Mm.
But more recently, I have found someone, and um, my first relationship, uh,
Congratulations.
and that also kind of changes my perspective as well because now I have someone else I need to take into consideration. And with my nomadic lifestyle, it's really hard to maintain a relationship. Um, so I'm at a crossroads right now, just trying to navigate um,
Mm-mm-mm.
maybe settling down somewhere versus continuing to
Yeah.
do blogging and travel.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Hey, I want to talk about budgeting because we should talk about in a bit more deep, like, it's not all glamorous. Like some of the photos like make it look incredible and it is an incredible experience, but it's a kind of trade-off for having to budget your money. So like, what was it like couch surfing? What kind of um things did you need to kind of not that you weren't able to do as a result of having to budget?
Yeah. So first, I just want to preface that I do think it's important to have enough money to be spending when you're traveling to like support the local communities. Like, I don't want to be like a freeloader everywhere that I'm going because that's not the type of travel style I support. But there are ways where you can save money, like couch surfing, which has multiple benefits. Um, so couch surfing is free, but that's not the main reason why I do it. The reason I do it is to get a more local experience while I'm abroad. Um, and one of the most unique couch surfing experiences I had was I had a host in Uganda um, come and pick me up in a canoe. He's like, hey, you can come stay in my village. I'll pick you up in my canoe. And I'm like, okay, that sounds awesome. Let's do it. I was traveling with my friend Jordan at the time. So he comes, picks me up in his canoe. There's no motor in the canoe, just one paddle. And he told me that he left at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, oh, really? Because it's 9 a.m. right now. Where does this guy live? So me and my friend Jordan hop in the canoe, and then he just starts paddling. He's like, yeah, it's about a 4-hour journey to get to my
Oh my
home.
God.
For me, it's like we're with this random stranger who I don't know anything about. They have a couch surfing profile with reviews, so you get to read about them.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love that experience because nowhere else I'd be able to get that if I just chose to stay in like a hotel or things like that.
Mhm.
And we spent one night at his little village. He like built his own houses and stuff, and we were invited to a wedding ceremony the next day, which we weren't able to stay the whole time, but like that's cool. Like different cultures that excites me. I'm like, oh my god, I want to see what a wedding is like in this little village in Uganda. So that's why I kind of like having a budget type backpacker lifestyle because I can have these type of experience versus if you're just going to spend your money and take a flight from A to Z because that's the cheapest place or that's the easiest way to get there.
Mhm.
Sometimes the cheaper way is more fun and exciting and can be
Mhm.
a whole travel experience.
Nice, nice. Yeah. I've always found that like sometimes I just make the decision to stay in a hostel or something. And you don't actually, even in a hostel, you don't get as authentic an experience as you might when you just go and stay with a local, because you know it's all travelers and things, but it's still much better than staying in a hotel room that's, you know, you don't speak to anybody and then you go into your room and then you go to the gym and then it can be kind of a lonely experience when you're, even though you're spending more money.
Yeah.
Yeah. um that's cool. So any other kind of budgeting tips and tricks people should be thinking about?
Yeah. One, I think it's important to kind of have a plan to know what your daily budget is. Um, so I've been keeping track for the past 2 years of the places I go, what my daily spend there. So if you're on a smaller budget, you just have to change the types of places you go. Travel in Southeast Asia or Central America versus major metropolitan cities in Europe. Um, you can travel in parts of like East Africa, but activities are always going to be really expensive in Africa. So maybe you have to set your budget a little bit higher. So um, once you know what your budget is, you can kind of cater where you can travel to.
Mhm.
But there's also um, different ways where you can do work exchanges. Uh, if you want to work in a hostel, or there's a website called Workaway where you they always have like different types of things. Might be working on a farm, or you're exchanging your services for free accommodation and probably some free meals. Um, so there is a way to travel on a budget. You don't need a lot of money. I probably live off of around $10,000 a year. Um,
Right.
but also I don't know. It comes with my personality as well. I don't
Mhm.
think it's easy for everyone to do the same thing that I do.
Mhm.
Um, but I feel comfortable with my budget for the year, and I'm still able to support local communities I'm going to. But the major thing I'm able to save money on is accommodation. So if you could save money on accommodation, that really cuts your costs for most things.
A lot of people will probably be like scared to like trust people. Like I know that that was a big deal with Couchsurfers. They've got ratings and reviews. Having done it for such a long time now and probably stayed with so many different people and things, do you have a abiding faith in humanity after this experience? Have there been kind of bad eggs, bad experiences that you can share, and you know, but overall has it been a good or negative experience, and would you recommend it, like share it staying with other people?
Um, that's one of the things that traveling has also taught me is just how people can be so giving, no matter what walk of life that they're in. Um, I'm often overwhelmed with like gratitude because the only reason I've been able to travel for this long is because others have been so helpful during this time. Um, so yeah, I do. I really put a lot of faith and trust in strangers and people that I don't know, um, because most of most of the time that they are good people. No one wants to inflict harm, but that is a general statement. But I also feel like you attract the people who are around you,
Mm.
um, and by putting out a positive energy, I think I attract that positive energy as well. And if I ever meet people who give me a wrong type of feeling, obviously I'm not going to um, uh, trust them.
Yeah.
I've never had like a very bad experience abroad. Like maybe sometimes you can get scammed here or there,
Mm.
but I've never felt fearful of my safety.
Mhm.
Um, I know I give my mom a heart attack when I tell her some of my stories. Uh, but people are like generally good. Like another little random story.
Go for it.
um, in my first year traveling, I was trying to find the Rainbow Mountains in Peru. Right now, they're really popular, but back in 2015, no one knew about them. They weren't on Google. There weren't any tours there. No one knew a thing. I saw one picture and I was determined to find these Rainbow Mountains. And I went on this adventure going to all these small towns in Peru until I finally went to the smallest little village. There was a potato farmer there. A potato farmer. I had like my own little like hand drawn map. I'm like, do you know how to find the Rainbow Mountains in like broken Spanish? And the potato farmer was like, yeah. He's like, I know. He said it was too late to go that day, so I could stay in his house. So me and my friend, we stayed in his house, and he stayed somewhere else. He came the next day early in the morning, 6 o'clock, to take us on this hike. He didn't ask for any money. He didn't ask for anything. He's just like, oh, this girl wants to find this mountain. I'll help her. We were the same age at the time. He didn't have any idea what New York City was. In my head, I'm like, everyone knows New York, but why would someone in this really small village have any idea what New
Mm.
York is? So to see someone who is definitely not as fortunate as I am, like he only knows this village, he only knows his farm work. That's what he does. Yet he was still so giving to me. He gave me a place to sleep. He gave me tea. He gave me food. I gave him some money at the end just because like he was so helpful. But to have those types of experiences, you really do see how people in this world um, are good,
Yeah.
and that helps create this positive attitude I have that I keep spreading to individuals that I meet. So by spreading the positivity, I don't know. I think people are good. I like humans.
Yeah, me too, me too. I want to, what about, I watched one of my favorite ones of your stories was your trip to the volcano. Do you want to tell about that trip?
Which volcano in the Congo?
That's one of my favorite statements. Yeah, the one in the Congo. Did you go and see those gorillas? Is
Oh yeah,
that
I was in the Congo too. um, yeah, I mean I've seen a lot of volcanoes in these 5 years, you know. But the best one was in the Congo.
yeah.
Um, so this is once again when I was backpacking in East Africa. I decided to go to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which many people, especially my mom, were really scared. They're like, Casey, it's not safe. Don't go there. Blah 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 blah. There was a couch surfing host there who met us at the border, helped us the entire stay, even though we couldn't stay um, with him at his place. He still wanted to show us his city and Goma and make sure we had a great tour. Um, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, that's where I went gorilla trekking and I hiked to the largest volcano, like the largest lava lake in the world. And those two experiences are the best things in the entire world. Um, they are so cool. One, the lava lake, it's just like this huge red thing that's bubbling and you can just stare at it. Like, you know how lava lamps are? Like, you would stare at lava lamps. Like,
Yeah.
this is like a huge scale with explosions, and you're in the middle of Africa and Congo in a place that's supposed to be dangerous, and uh, at the top of this, like, it's amazing.
When I wa-
Everyone should experience it.
when I watched that video, I was like, I need to just go traveling. I can't believe I'm going to start your lifestyle soon. Just, I've got to go to the Congo and do that. And see these gorillas. I think there was a TV program that I saw recently. Are they like, it's super dangerous in this national park? And I think it's probably the same park, but is it like they've got this documentary where there's a lot of militia people trying to kill some of the gorillas, and this national park is like one way that they can attract tourists and things and make money for the country. Is that part of the story?
Yeah, that's definitely true. So, in Virunga National Park, there has been a lot of violence there in terms of like poachers So all the staff that works there, all the rangers that work there, they're dedicating their lives to help protect the park, to help protect these animals, and to help the conservation efforts. So it's really serious what they're doing, but it's all in the name of like conservation. So the Congo does not get that much tourists, and to do these experiences costs a lot of money.
Mm.
But I am completely okay with how much money it costs because it's all going to support these rangers and the park for the conservation efforts. Now, where the tourists are, where the tourists go, those parts are safe. There has been one incident in like the past 20 years, um, but the more dangerous parts of the park, tourists don't go.
Mhm.
So I still recommend people to go to the Congo. Always check for security alerts first, because
Mm.
even on the day that Jordan and myself, the day that we went gorilla trekking, that same day we 5 rangers got killed in the park,
Wow.
and the next day we were supposed to hike the volcano, and we're like, should we hike this volcano?
Yeah.
Like, what? Oh, like, this is crazy. And we talked to the staff at the park because they always want to make sure tourists are safe because if anything happens to tourists, then that's that's it for them.
Mhm.
And as I said, about a month after Jordan and I were in the Congo, there was an incident with tourists where 2 British tourists got kidnapped.
Mm.
They were released after 2 days.
Mhm.
Um, but after that, the park closed for almost a year to improve their safety standards, and that was the one experience they've had, and I don't know how long. Um, so things can always happen when you're traveling, and obviously, if you go to a country that is more dangerous, that has more war, conflict, there always is a level of awareness you need to have.
Mhm.
But don't let that overcome your fear to experience these things because, as I said, this park really can use tourist dollars, and their priority is to keep the tourists safe.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of, it's just they're so rich with minerals in some of these countries. So there's so much conflict going on, and it's hard to make it a safe place. But they're such beautiful countries, and they've got such beautiful places and wildlife and things that so many people would want to go and visit there. Yeah. Where else would you recommend kind of off the beaten track? Where would, a couple of other places, kind of like the Congo, that, people should think about traveling where they might not have thought of it before?
So my favorite country is Mozambique. I
Right.
absolutely love Mozambique off the coast of East Africa. Reason I recommend Mozambique is one, it's the best beaches I've ever seen in the entire world are up in the north in the archipelago. Um, and there's no one there. Like it's your own beach. It's perfect for a honeymoon. Like perfect for a honeymoon. Um, and there's also just the experience of traveling in Mozambique. It's a very hard country to travel in, but I think that makes you just appreciate it even more once you get to that destination.
Mm.
Because traveling throughout Africa can be a different experience. You have a 5-seater car, and you've put 8 people in it.
Yeah.
In Mozambique, you have a 5-seater car, you put 12 people in it. Like they take Africa to like the extreme where you didn't think any more people could fit, but like
Y-
they 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 make it away.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was in this what they call chapa, which is like their version of the bus, and there's like some guard and he has his gun stuck in between my legs just because like that's how we're sitting and like that's where the gun's going to fit. I've had babies stuck on my laps because
Yeah,
like that's
yeah,
how
yeah,
we're going. I have this
yeah.
random child.
I think I'm pretty sure when I went to Tanzania, they put like I was on a bus trip once, and somebody like had a cage with a chicken in it. I was like holding it, and there's people holding onto the outside of the bus as well.
Yeah,
It's
I
crazy.
don't understand how those people are able to. That's
That's,
amazing. It's
that's
impressive.
insane. I know. It's just normalized, and then when you see it enough, you're like, oh yeah, that's normal. Oh wow.
Um, so yeah, Mozambique is definitely on my list, and really anywhere in East Africa. I love Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania. And my second favorite places are in Central America, Guatemala, Nicaragua. Those are
Hmm.
My heart's there too.
Cool, cool. Okay, kind of last kind of question. I see that you're trying to now, obviously you've been working at Yacht Week and stuff, but I saw that you started a separate blog for how to, like, your journey in making money as a travel blogger. So what's your thinking behind that? What's the kind of plan? Because obviously that's something that might be a little bit more kind of sustainable for your lifestyle.
Yeah. So once again, that's why I said it's good for me to be back home right now because I finally have time to work on projects like my blogging. I've had my website since I started traveling, but I very rarely worked on it because I really appreciate living life. Uh, and I would get distracted just with all these experiences versus documenting it all.
Yep.
Um, so I created the journey to be a blogger just to track my progress. Like, is it possible to monetize blogging? Is
Mhm.
this something I want to do? What are the steps? And now I've finally taken like my first real stab at it. Now that I've been forced to be home, and it's a lot of work. It's
Yeah.
definitely a lot of work. Um, but it's exciting work because I'm learning. Learning new skills. I'm learning how to market. Um, and it's fun for me to have a project to be working on.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I was missing with the whole traveling world because traveling's great. I love it, but I do miss having a personal project that I'm working on.
Yeah.
Uh,
But
so we really,
you can kind of combine them, I guess. It's like that's your passion is traveling, but this can be like, people often traveling without purpose can feel like not as fulfilling, but the sharing of it, um telling stories like this, that can be awesome. Because, like, what kind of feedback have you had from your community that you've built on Instagram, like over the period of time? Do you get a lot of questions from people?
yeah. I love when people send me direct messages and they're just like, "Hey, like stranger, I don't know who they are. They like you really inspired me. I'd love some tips on like how I could travel the world, or like, oh, I see you work at Yacht Week. Can you help me like become a hostess for Yacht Week?"
Mhm.
Um, so I know social media can be like a blessing and a curse, but for me, I really appreciate the whole social media world because um, I can go to my followers to ask for tips. Like if I'm in a random city, I'm like, what should I do here? And like all these people tell me things that I should do.
That's so cool.
Um, and I just like to build this community of people who, like, I'm not the one in the fancy dress, like going off to these places. I really just want to show the authentic travel experiences that I'm having and to tell the stories behind them.
Mhm.
Um, so that's how I kind of developed the following on Instagram. And now um, I'm ready to transition from my casual traveling around the world to being a blogger. And my main focus areas that I want to showcase are how to connect with the local communities, because that's really important to me, and how to support these local communities. And with my blog, it's already um, brought money to some of the locals that I met, like the guy in the Congo I mentioned, the couchsurfing host. I've been able to um, send people from my blog to book tours through him, and that like warms my heart, like to be able to help the people who have helped me in my travels. Um, and the other parts of my blog that I focus on are how to sustain long-term travel, and also traveling to less frequented places.
That's awesome. I'm pretty sure anyone listening to this is going to be very jealous of your lifestyle. But I guess it just shows, like, yeah, I quite like that you're kind of giving practical tips for people and how they can just do it, and it's not that remote, and you can sustain something like this over a long period of time if you just kind of make the right choices and things. So it's been awesome, super inspiring, Casey. Well, I guess we can kind of wrap up. So thanks so much for being on Unplanned with Phil Bland, and and yeah, catch up soon.
Okay, thanks, Phil.
Bye, Casey.
Bye.